right, we are back resuming public session. We are concluding our executive session, nothing left to report. Will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence once we conclude. And Chris Puccini, would you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if everybody would please remain standing for a moment of silence. One of our past board members, a past vice president, Carl Moot III, has passed away. If we could just remember him as in a moment of silence. Thank you. Please be seated. All right, just a reminder, emergency exits located to the back of the building and to my right, to the audience left. This is a smoke-free school district. Smoking is not permitted in the building or anywhere on the school grounds. This is also a hate-free and bully-free school district. And again, I want to apologize that we're a little late in getting started on our public portion. Yesterday was a very busy day in our district. We had our school vote for our budget and our 2 additional propositions, all passed successfully, and we are very grateful for the district for that support. We also had our elections, and we're happy to report re-election of Chris Puccini, so congratulations to Chris. And the election of a new board member, Deborah DeLillo, who is not able to be with us tonight, so we'll welcome her at the next meeting. And Karen Trent, who couldn't be with us tonight, will be leaving the board at the end of this session, but he spent a number of years, I don't recall how many years he's been with us, but we'll give him his congratulations at the June 5th meeting as well. All right, so we are up to the board consent agenda. Does anybody need to take out separately the minutes? I don't think so. I think everybody was at those meetings. All right, so we need a recommendation from the superintendent for the consent agenda, items C.
Thank you, President Felice. The administration recommends the approval of board consent items reflected in Schedule C1 through C7.
Okay, do we have a motion and a second from the board? Motion by trustee Barry, seconded by trustee Kavanaugh for C1 through C7. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Seeing all hands raised, the motion passes unanimously. And I guess I was remiss. Let me just back up a little bit. Yesterday's election could not happen without the expertise of our district clerk and everybody who worked with her, between maintenance, technology, who else, Chris?
The election inspectors, the security
Election
officers,
inspectors, who else? All hands were on deck.
Yeah, as everyone in central office, everybody just seemed to have played a part in it. I was very grateful.
And ran smoothly.
Yes.
And you were at the head of it all, so thank you very much for everything that you did. All right. Brings us to communication and announcements, and I'm sure the superintendent is going to echo those comments in his report.
Perhaps I will, President Felice.
Okay.
The other one. Welcome everyone to our May 22nd Board of Education meeting. Excited to get started. First and foremost, really excited that our budget passed. In fact, it passed with almost a 72% approval rating, which is really high for our community, so I'm really proud of that. And to that end, really excited that, number one, our budget passed, of course, and I want to congratulate Trustee Puccini in his re-election, our incoming trustee Deborah DeLillo, and of course, I wanted to give a shout out to Mr. Trustee Trent, who could not be here for just his years of service. It's been great working with him, and I look forward to continuing to work with him for the rest of this session. Really excited about expanding our bus routes for our high school students. Currently, you have to live 1.5 miles away to get access to a bus. We reduced that to 1 mile, so that's gonna actually affect almost 100 high school students to make it a bit easier to get to school. And this was budget neutral, which was amazing. This was through the work of Jen Segui in the business office and working with a transportation consultant. And finally, use of the capital reserve to finally renovate that auditorium. You know, I hate to say it, but it's clipper shame. And, you know, when you look at the auditorium and the way the seats look, it really is not a source of pride for us. So we're really happy to get that approved so we can get that work done and really give the, you know, our students and our community the performance space that they deserve. A lot of thanks to go out. First and foremost, I want to thank our South Country voters, some of which are here, for their support, our South Country organizations, the various organizations that lobbied on our behalf, of course, the Board of Trustees that are always advocating for our school district, my administrative team across the board for doing their jobs and doing their jobs well, our entire staff. I know the BTA goes to great lengths to support our budget, so I want to show my appreciation to them as well, and all of our collective bargaining units. And of course, Chris Flynn, I gave you a special shout out, and I know it makes you feel funny, but you deserve the accolades. And the amount of work that goes into organizing an election is monumental. She's there from like 6:30 in the morning until almost 10 p.m., taking no breaks. So I just want to give you your much deserved shout out.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much. I
Ms.
appreciate it.
Let's get on to some fun stuff. I got to attend the Brookhaven concert and art show. Really a fantastic time, and a shout out to Dr. Raymond, Mr. Cavaluso, of course, Mr. Cosi, who inspires these kids to not only perform songs, but play various instruments, do some solos in the art. Oh, before I go into the art, and also Miss Connie Adi. She's actually a retired Brookhaven teacher. According to her, she was a teacher in the 60s, but she's coming back to do the piano accompaniment for our students. It was great just talking to her and talking a little bit about the history of Brookhaven, so I want to give her a special shout out. And of course, the art and display. We had some John Michael Basquiat and Keith Haring works, inspired works on display, and those little kids did a fantastic job. The kids are awesome. Big shout out to Mr. Nof, he's one of our safety officers who keeps the kids safe. But great time at Brookhaven, always a fantastic time. That building is truly full of love. I also got to attend the Kramer Street Elementary School concert last night. Another great event. We had some dancing, some instruments being played. So big shout out to Michelle Steritz, their music teacher, and their art show, which was water-based themed. It was pretty cool to see some of the artistry of our youngest artists in our district. So I want to give a shout out to Ms. Braithwaite for inspiring them. And again, the kids were ready to perform and energetic, and they are a huge source of Clipper pride. Moving on to Frank P. Long, another great concert featuring our chorus and our orchestra and our band. So big shout out to Ms. Rosinski, Ms. Olberg, the building administration, of course, Mr. Giamona, who directs the chorus. There's a whole bunch of kids in that chorus. Ms. Romano, who directed the orchestra, and Mr. Rouse, the band. I still find it mind-boggling that music teachers are able to sort of manage, you know, a lot of kids and able to identify those one or two kids that are out of tune. It's a remarkable thing to watch. So I just want to give our entire music staff and Ms. Hartman, our music chair, a big shout out for putting on such great performances and being a source of Clipper pride. That continues on to our middle school. I was able to attend their first concert, which was awesome. Big shout out to Ms. Bunk, Ms. Steinkamp, Ms. Garcia, and Mr. Sherlock, who took a selfie. I wasn't able to attend the second concert, but I had a good reason to miss it, which I'll talk about in a little bit later slide. Also, the artwork on display there was also pretty fantastic. This is all from middle school kids. They included mixed media, photography. Always impressive, always a great source of Clipper pride. Staying on the middle school sort of thematic element, I did get to go down to this career day and spend some time with sixth graders. Once again, no one was interested in being a superintendent, but they were very much interested in my former life as an actor and comedian. I'm still part of the Screen Actors Guild, so the kids had a lot of questions about that profession, but the bottom line, I said, it takes hard work and that pride, you know, being prepared, respectful, involved, diligent, and ethical. I also got to sit in for Ryan's Story, which was a character education assembly. Mr. Hannigan, who you see there looking on to the students, who were a fantastic audience. He spoke for a little over an hour, and the students were extremely attentive. But basically, he tells the story of his son, who was a little sort of different, who as a result of his bullying, made the awful decision to take his own life at the young age of 13 years old. Really compelling story, and the message, of course, is a message of kindness, which is on display in the middle school. When I was there, students, with the help of Ms. Dooley and Ms. Torrey, decided one of the things we do with our food services is we can't keep food that's not used. Even if it's wrapped, we're not allowed to keep it. So the students and the teachers came up with the ideas, why don't we collect that and distribute it to students who may be hungry so they can take it home and certainly have a snack for later portions of the day. That's just a photo of some of the student volunteers that go up and down the hallways collecting the snacks and distribute them to different classes, which I think is a pretty fantastic thing. I also had the opportunity to go back to my roots and do what I call the Pride Assembly. I actually addressed all 3 grades at the middle school, and we talked about expectations. Certainly for me, you know, one of the things I can say is that middle school is the toughest age. In any school district, that's kind of the thematic element. But I wanted to make it clear what our expectations were in terms of student decorum, and certainly when students make poor choices or engage in any sort of physical violence or fights, it's just not tolerated by us. And I wanted to make that point clear to them. But at the same time, you know, my presentation centered about the expectations and the things we want them to do. Because it's really easy to talk about what we shouldn't do, and I can argue that all kids know what's right and wrong, but I don't know how much they know when you go into depth about what's the right thing to do. So we talked about attendance. You know, you have to show up for school. That's kind of a key element to be successful. Their attitudes, and how to best sort of manage your attitudes. And then we talked about achievement and setting high goals for themselves and trying to discover what their strengths are. And then I tied that into my whole pride. You know, again, you hear me say Clipper Pride, but for me, the keys to success or the keys to be a good person is, again, being prepared for when that opportunity comes, because I feel that success comes when luck and preparation come together. Being respectful. If you have respectful relationships with those around you, opportunities will come to you. No one's going to give opportunities or give chances to people who are disrespectful. Being involved, that's the I. Be involved in your community. Be involved in your school. If you want things to be different, then do something about it. Just sit back and complain. The D means diligent. Always put your best foot forward. Do your best. That's really important. And the E, which is ethical. Ultimately, it's not enough to be great. You need to be good and great. And we emphasize that to the students. They were a great audience, so I had a great time kind of going back into my roots and speaking with the students. So that was a really great time at the middle school. Then we talk about artistry and music and fine and performing arts. These are just some shots of the art that was on display at our district art show. Always super impressed by the talents that our students exhibit. In this picture, we see Ms. Stankamp. She was playing with the middle school orchestra as part of the art show. They too were impressive. Some of these images are just remarkable. Some of them are from elementary schools as well. In this picture, we see Ms. Hartman playing with the orchestra. They were sort of just playing by sight or by reading the music, and they were also fantastic. So it was nice to take a break and listen to that music. And one more shot of just some of the art that was on display. Again, I'm just super impressed and wowed by it. It's really remarkable. The jazz band that was being conducted there by Ms. Wazin actually played some Earth, Wind, and Fire, which I really appreciated. And I really got into a little treat when Emma Kugel and Liam Kugel did a little impromptu song with their dad. He's a Bellport grad, Mr. Kugel, and it was just fun to see this family performing together, so I just wanted to give them a special shout out. And all of our artists, our teachers, our musicians are really great sources of Clipper pride. Moving on to some more South Country community happenings. A while back, it was Arbor Day, or when we celebrate trees, so we had the good pleasure of joining Mayor Viet at the Bellport Village Association with Lorraine Kuhn and the Bellport Gardening Club. They donated a tree to Kramer, which was planted right in their courtyard, and all the students at Kramer got seeds that they can go back into their communities and plant just to get a greener earth. It was the first time in my life I saw young kids enthusiastically chanting, "Plant that tree, plant that tree." So that was a lot of fun. I also got to go to Kramer for a Cinco de Mayo celebration. I don't know how I felt about wearing that sombrero, but I did, in good faith. But we did a little sort of dual language little presentation to tell a little bit about the history of Cinco de Mayo, which is not known to a lot of people. So I want to give a shout out to Principal Clark and Ms. Marmo, who put the whole program together. Some of the kids performed little cultural pieces. It was just a lot of fun. We also boast a lot about civics education, so I got to go and do civics with second graders. So they're doing their research for a Civics Day presentation. These second graders from CRITS are actually going to go to the high school to present, which I think is pretty cool. Their topic was field trips. and whether or not they could have more field trips. And of course, we entertained the conversation. In the end, we all concluded, which was off topic, that the mouse from Chuck E. Cheese is terrifying. So that's where the conversation went. The reason I missed the second concert at the middle school was because I got to attend a really special event. It's entitled Our Community Salutes. Our Community Salutes is a national organization which acknowledges students who enlist in our one of the branches of our armed services. I had the pleasure of attending that event with Trustee Piccini and Trustee Hayes. What was really cool about it is, number one, 3 of our seniors, that's Connor Wilson, Lazarus Jackson, and Adonis Lopez, have all chosen to enlist subsequent to their graduation. And it was great just to feel that American patriotism, and we kind of forget. And to sit there with these dignitaries, these high-ranking military officials, and hear them talk really was inspiring to me. It really made me feel proud to be an American. And the icing on the cake was that one of the keynote speakers was Rear Admiral Michael Quinn. He's the highest-ranking person I ever met. He's also a Belport grad from 1978, super high-ranking in the Navy, and he spoke. So to see the connection between the class of 2024 and the class of 1978 was pretty cool. So big shout out again to Connor, Lazarus, and Adonis for making this choice to serve their country. We should be very proud, and they too are a source of Clipper pride. Getting into some spring highlights from the high school. One of the things that I really like, I'm not happy about, is I don't get to go to many spring sports because it's budget season and it's not out of desire, but I did go to a couple of things. Unified basketball is always a great feel-good sort of event when we see some of our special needs students participate. And what I really loved about it is the amount of students that show to come and support. I also wanted to give a shout out to SEPTA, which is our Special Education Parent-Teacher Association, who was there selling concessions, who have really been supportive. And I also realized that I wasn't the only Antonio Santana in the district. He's also Antonio Santana, and I think he wears the name a lot better than I do. So I just wanted to give him a shout out. I do believe the town is big enough for the two of us. But again, got to hang out with some of the seniors on our tennis team, which was pretty cool. Soraya Menninger, also one of our golfers, placed 15th, which may not on its face sound that impressive. It was a really great showing for a golfer to place 15th in our county. I wanted to give her a shout out, in addition to Aisha Rodney, who's one of our track athletes, who got a full ride to Cornell University. So big shout out to her. Yeah. A little biased, it's my alma mater, so it was great talking to her, and she's excited. She's going to be a bio major. But one thing we failed to do, and it wasn't out of lack of desire, is to acknowledge some of our fall athletes who received all-state accolades. And the only reason we weren't able to acknowledge them is because they're multi-sport athletes, and they were busy. So I wanted to not lose out on that opportunity. And at this point, I'm going to call up Mr. Hayes, so we can acknowledge Trayvon Hollins from the football team, Mr. Tatum Sip, and Mr. Caleb White, who could not be here, but to talk a little bit more specifically about their accomplishments, I want to ask Mr. Patrick Hayes to come up.
Thank you, Mr. Santana. President Felice, Board of Trustees. First, congratulations on a successful and overwhelming positive vote yesterday. I know that's a huge breath of fresh air and all the hard work that goes into it. But yeah, sorry for the delay. Timing was not on our side the last time that we recognized all-state athletes, and happy that we could circle back to these fine young men here from our fall athletes. The time that the all-state team comes out, we're well into our winter season, and these guys had lacrosse games going on. So without further ado, we'll meet them a little bit more. First, a 3-year varsity player and senior captain, Tatum Sip, receiving all-state honors. Tatum was also the recipient of the Paul Maurice Rich in Pride, Rich in Spirit, and Rich in Heart Award locally here at the team. Tatum was a integral part of the 2 county championships that we won over the last 3 years prior to this season. Also helped lead the team this year as a senior captain. So Tatum is really the epitome of what it means to be a hard-working Belport football player. So congratulations, Tatum, on your all-state honors. Congratulations. Hang on, right here. All right, and then we're going to pitch with everybody. Next up, we have Mr. Trayvon Hollins. Trayvon is a junior captain. He is also All-State recognized. As a junior, this is a very good accomplishment. Locally, he was the recipient of the Antonio O'Farrell and Ed Lundy Team MVP this year as a junior. Trayvon, we're very excited to announce that he will be back next year. He more recently just received the MVP honors at a Rising Senior Game last weekend, so the future is very bright for Trayvon. Keep working hard, and we're excited to see what your senior campaign does. Congratulations, Trayvon. And I also think he grew 3 inches from football, which is a nice thing. And last but not least, unfortunately, Mr. Caleb White could not be here this evening, but Caleb was a senior captain also and a All-State player designation. He was the recipient of the Eddie Gowans Offensive MVP this year. Caleb was a nice piece for the team this year because he stepped up into a position where there was a need. He came into a position he didn't play last year, which is an integral quarterback position. So wherever the need was, Caleb was there. So it was great for him to be recognized on All-State as well. So congratulations to all our All-State. Special thanks to Coach Fabian, his coaching staff, and all the time and energy that they put in. And a special thanks to all of you for all the support for all of our sports throughout the year. It is evident. We saw all of your faces throughout the year, and I know it's more than just that face time. There's a lot of time and energy, so thank you to all that time that you do put into it. First, we'll get a picture with you guys, and then
It's gotta be the shoes.
Thank you.
Congrats.
So, moving on, and you guys can go, you're free. So the second graders were talking about field trips, and I said, we have plenty of field trips in our school district. I was like, but there has to be like an element of learning, and that's how kind of field trips work. And I told them about this one amazing field trip that our fifth graders took, and it was to Wild Play in Jones Beach. And these are photos of the kids challenging these zip line courses and obstacle courses. And what's amazing about this particular park, and there's this whole concept of challenge by choice, you don't have to do these challenges. And so to see, and I'll have Mr. Hayes talk a little bit more specifically about it as well, it's really cool to see which kids rise up. Sometimes the timid kids that don't seem that they're so brave are the bravest, and they're the ones that are going to first do that tower that's all high up. But the reason we wanted to bring this up and call special attention to it, this was a result. The entire grade was able to go at no cost to them or the district because, and a big special thanks to Caitlin Jones here for applying for a grant, getting that grant. We enabled the entire grade to have this wonderful experience, and I just want to call up both of you guys to talk about the experience with a little bit more specificity.
Thank you, sir. All right, so this all started with one little piece of paper like this, Superintendent's Day. Teachers got it in their folder, and Ms. Catrone here opened that folder and said, what's this? And she took it, and it turned into a $21,000 grant that our kids had this great experience, and we have one more trip planned coming up. And as you can see, we had one day where it was complete fog, and I'm sure Coach Catrone being there was like, wow. And you literally are in Jones Beach, and it's a great experience for our kids. And we had a beautiful sunny day, and we have one more trip coming up, breaking it off. But we are really grateful to Ms. Catrone here for taking the initiative, going through the state education, not the state parks department for this Connect Kids grant. And the fact that it's out there, Ms. Catrone went out there, sourced it, went through the legwork of breaking up each individual bus trip, each individual day. There was a lot of time, energy put into this, and as a result, you see these smiling faces, that these fifth graders had a unique experience to do something that they might normally ever not do. And it was free to us as a district and the kids, And the experience itself, like Mr. Santana said, it really is, and I had the opportunity to go down there as well and see the smile on the kids' faces, and also the fear for some kids who wouldn't necessarily know that they're afraid of these things. And like Mr. Santana said, the kids that also did gain a couple notches up on the ladder of like, oh, he did that, she did that. So it really was a great experience, and we're looking forward to the third trip going in next Tuesday. Yep. Yeah. So all great things, and a special thanks to Ms. Catrone because it really was a remarkable trip for our kids. So thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. And so, once again, I just captured kind of the tip of the iceberg with some of my reports. Please stay in touch on our various social media platforms, where all of our schools and various departments are posting. We even have student groups who post pretty regularly if you want to keep in touch with all the great things that are happening in South Country. Again, join our community portal if you want to get electronic messages or be part, even if you don't have kids in the district. You can have access to our district-wide correspondence, and there's a link there to subscribe to our Blackboard Connect. There's a link there which will have all of our social media platforms, so if you want to just get the hashtags, you can keep track of what's going on in the district. There's also the Superintendent's Corner, which opens up. The Superintendent's Corner has my contact information if you want to reach out. It has my social media handles. I post on LinkedIn, Twitter, or X, and Instagram, as well as my weekly update, which is kind of a blog that goes out every Friday. So again, once again, all of this is possible through the support of our trustees, of course, and our community. Thank you for passing the budget, and thank you for your commitment to the South Country community. And before I sit down, I want to say that we will be hosting our pre-K lottery at the end of the month. That's May 31st. We'll make an official announcement on our website. As of today, we have 87 families signed up for 90 spots. If that number stays static, that means every family is going to get a spot in our pre-K program, and moving forward, it'll be first come, first served. We decided to hold the lottery a little earlier in the year as a courtesy to all those families who actually went and registered during our registration period. So once again, May 31st will be our pre-K lottery. It will be held here at 2 p.m. If the number still happens to be less than 90, that pretty much guarantees a spot for all the families involved. Thank you all. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on to the trustee reports. Trustee Barry, would you like to begin?
Sure. I got the opportunity when I was voting to see Christine troubleshooting some issues with the election, but I just certainly want to thank the community for coming out and voting, and it is nice to see approval across the board for the items presented. So.
Great, thank you.
I don't have anything, President, please.
Okay. I'll come back to you, okay? All right, Trustee Flippin? Trustee Pacini?
Yeah, I got a couple things. Obviously, I'm very pleased with yesterday's results. I appreciate the community support and congratulate Mr. Santana on a successful budget. Of course, I'm really honored to be able to come back for a fifth term. It really is a privilege to do this job, and I really enjoy it. So I'm very thankful to the community. I do want to touch on the election a little bit. I think turnout had to be the lowest ever, right? I mean, by my guess, it was like 1,400 votes. 1236, even worse. And I think last year was like 1,800 or 1,900, 1,700, and it goes down every year, and that's a bad thing. No matter how it comes out, it's easy to pass a budget 71% when so few people come out, right? But there's still too much apathy in our community, and that's a little frustrating. And I would hope that, and really because there's good conversations happening. I remember at Meet the Candidates Night, somebody asked me, how do we affect change? What do we do? And I said, we have to have conversations as a community in rooms like this, and it's not really happening enough, and that's a shame. And I hope that over the course of the next year or so, that changes. And because people come out when things aren't great, and, you know, that's not the time to come out. Let's come out and have conversations about what's going right and how we can make it even better, and how we can do this, because, again, another question that always comes up is, you know, how do we make change? And people see things, and I'll bring up, you know, a lot of us in the community saw some videos of some fights in the middle school. You know, how do we change things? And it's, all stakeholders have to come together. It's not the superintendent and the board, it's not the superintendent and the board and the administration, it's the superintendent, it's the board, it's the administration, it's the faculty, it's the families, it's the community, it's the kids, it's everybody. Those are our stakeholders, and that's the only way to really affect change, to move us forward. And like I said, there's a troubling trend post-COVID of turnout just getting lower and lower and lower, and I hope that changes. On that, there is a couple of things. I guess I'll go on, so that we had a Nassau Suffolk School Board meeting last week. A couple of interesting things that did come out about elections. Island-wide, 25% of incumbents did not rerun for a re-election. That's the highest percentage in a number of years. I don't have the percentage here, but the percentage of schools that had candidates run unopposed was extremely high, which again is that same trend towards apathy in a lot of districts, and that should be scary, that nobody wants to get involved and nobody wants to have these conversations. Everybody's quick to complain when something's not right, but let's all get together and start talking about how to make things better. In addition, at the Nassau Suffolk School Board meeting last week, there are a couple of different things. We had a really great discussion. The meeting before the election is always very well attended, and a lot of great conversations. There are a few things bouncing around in Albany that are worth paying attention, and they might not sound like that big of a deal. One of them is, believe it or not, there is actually discussing legislation at the Education Committee to make student ex officio board member a mandatory regulation for school districts. You have to have it. The associations are probably going to fight against it, not because they don't want student ex officio members, because we have such a great experience at our district, but some small districts have a hard time finding somebody to do it. So to make it mandatory is a little tough. There is also, what I think may become a hot button issue, is there is an issue about sports at the high school level, I guess middle school and high school level, in relation to gender. And it is not about, you know, how you were born, biological, transgender. It's not necessarily about that, unless that's leading up to it. And it's being pushed pretty heavily by the regions, specifically Region Tillis, to make the sports not matter what your gender is if there's no. So basically, if we had a field hockey team, 10 boys can go out and just take over the field hockey team and take away opportunities from female athletes. And the reasoning behind this is, if I'm not mistaken, I believe if a female athlete wants to play, say, football, they have to pass a fitness test, correct?
Correct.
It doesn't, so there's an equity issue there, which is what the regions are harping on. I think this is foolish, because they're gonna take away opportunities and they're gonna create safety issues, in my opinion, but that's like I said, it's kind of a third rail conversation right now. This one is a little bit different, without having any of those, it's taking a position away from a young lady or whatever, none of that will matter. This is, if a boy wants to play a girl sport and there's not the same sport available in their gender, they can play. That's what's getting talked about in Albany right now. So I think that's worth paying attention to. The other thing, I did attend our community salutes. Board members, if you've never gone and you have the opportunity, it's an amazing event. I can't always get there. This is the first year post-COVID that it's back at Sunset Harbor, and it's a dinner atmosphere. Through COVID, they had it at William Floyd High School in the auditorium, and it was very nice, but some of the speakers, including the Rear Admiral, I thought he was pretty impressive. I really enjoyed his comments. They have the same keynote speaker. I think this was the 10th year. And do you remember her name, the retired Sergeant Major from the Army? I can't remember her name. She's an amazing speaker, even though she went a little long. But she's an amazing speaker. To listen to her, I wanted to go and list. I mean, it was pretty amazing, and it's always fun when you know some of the families that are there. And the few times that I've gone, that's always happened. So it's a great event, and thankful to my friend Bob Vecchio from Floyd, who put that together about 10 years ago. One other thing was, so I briefly mentioned, because it was the election, like I said, it was really, really quiet until there were a couple of fights in the middle school and conversations started happening, and it really got me thinking, again, about the conversations we're having and what we're having. And I would like to really understand, and the superintendent, I had a brief conversation about this after my meeting, because I had a conversation with a few superintendents at the last meeting I was at. I really want to understand, or maybe just get refreshed as to what our efforts are in character education in the elementary schools. Because talking to some, I wonder if maybe it needs a refresh, a rebranding, and maybe I'm wrong. I haven't had an elementary school kid in a couple of years, but coming out of a post-COVID, world, things are different. And these kids in middle school, and if you, again, I know people roll their eyes when you say this, in that room, there's 24 school board members and superintendent, a couple of superintendents from all across Long Island. Every one of them will tell you that the behavior in the middle school, at any school, no matter what, I don't care what the demographic is, because there's folks in Syosset and Jericho in the room, there's us, Bay Shore, there's a lot of, different types of districts. They're all having the same problem. And, we can blame it on devices, social media, and it's all relevant. But these kids missed 2 really valuable years of elementary school. These kids are in middle school right now, and that's where character education takes place. So I just like to know, and I'm not saying we're not doing it, right? Maybe it's a rebranding, maybe it's a different thought process, maybe it's talking to other districts and superintendents about some things that, they're doing that we're not. Because I had and I told Mr. Santana, a really nice conversation with Dr. Famularo from Belmore. And there was just a couple of things and policies that they do that, and maybe we're doing them, and I don't know, but I'd really like to just have that conversation. We talk about a lot of things in the board meetings, and I really think that's one we should discuss.
So our basically slew of programs we have is pretty robust. In many regards, we're like ahead of the curve compared to other districts with everything from Second Step, Mind Up. There's more than a handful of actually curriculum-based, research-based interventions we do at the elementary school levels. That goes all the way through grade 8. We have different character ed programs at the high school. In terms of rebranding, since I started, part of the Clipper Pride was just that. And sort of having these sort of 5 characteristics that spell out the word pride, because when it becomes part of your vernacular and you say it over and over again, people start sort of embracing it. And so, I'll even have, kids say, oh, that's not Clipper Pride when they see something awry. With regards to middle school, I do feel a little obligated to make a statement in that, unfortunately, when there are things that are posted on social media that are posted out of context and are horrific to anybody who watches it, because make no mistake, no one wants to see kids engage in a physical altercation. I want to emphasize that we don't have any tolerance for it, and kids are consequenced. But the response to those types of things aren't the consequences, because again, if you have to administer a consequence, you're already too late. The idea is, what can you do proactively to extinguish these things? And I use the word extinguish because diminish is not a strong enough word for me. My goal is to have 0 fights. Whether I'll ever accomplish that, maybe not. But you have to set the bar really high for yourself. And so we consistently talk to students. We've been really successful, and this is a piece that isn't advertised, with our restorative practices and having meetings and mediations with kids that don't escalate to fights. But that's not posted. What's posted, and some people will say, I can't believe kids gather around fights and videotape it. Kids have been gathering around fights forever, ever since I was a kid before cell phones. We always knew when kids were engaged in a fight, and we'll get together and watch it. And so how do we change that mindset? And how do we also address the fact that, kids were isolated for 2 years. Kids have access to social media. Almost all of our conflicts, and I want to say all, but I've learned not to talk in absolutes, stem on social media conflicts that aren't based in reality. And what I mean by that is kids make things up, they assume personas online that they're not in real life, and then it escalates to the point where kids want to carry out sort of these horrific actions. I was not happy to see some of these postings. No one should be happy. I have 0 tolerance for violence in schools. Really, and I told this to the middle school kids as well, because number 1, kids can get hurt, staff can get hurt in trying to break up fights. Number 2, kids shouldn't be exposed to violence in school. And number 3, what sort of an image does that set for a school? It doesn't set a good image. Like, what are you really trying to promote as a student? When 99% of those kids are making great choices. When I walk around the middle school, it's a happy place. There's no random act of violence. Staff members aren't being targeted. But middle school kids are middle school kids. They are. And I don't like saying that comment because it makes it seem like I just wave my hands up in the air and not care. But the truth is, they're the most challenging group. At the same time, they're an amazing group. I spent half my career working with middle school kids. They're idealistic. They still believe they can change the world. those kids volunteering to distribute food. There's just so many good things happening. So we're gonna keep emphasizing the character ed piece, still preaching the whole idea of kindness and speaking to one another, but at the same time holding kids accountable for when they make those poor choices. And sometimes it really is unavoidable. Sometimes it's no matter what. In one case, it was an altercation where the kids had spent 3 periods with their guidance counselor, administration was there, and they still decided to engage. And sometimes those things happen, and we still have to revisit and continually work on it, because the way I see it, school districts are that proverbial plane that you're building while in flight. It's never gonna be complete. Society changes way too often for us to have a finished product. And every year, every time a new app comes out, every time kids are exposed to something new, we're gonna have to sort of modify and reflect and change our practices. And that's gonna be continual. It's continual work forever. You know, the school I went to does not exist today. It doesn't. Fear of consequences does not exist anymore. You know, we're living in a different time. So our approach has to be different. You know, I feel very satisfied with the amount of work we're already doing, but that's not to say that we have a lot of work ahead of us. And so we're gonna continue doing that work. We wanna bring in more character education. You know, me talking to a group of kids and in mass is probably the least effective way to elicit change, but it's a part of a larger dynamic. And we wanna make sure that our students know what my message is in terms of my leadership role in the district, and we have to be consistent in it. But I do feel like we have a great population of kids, and I hate the fact that a handful of fights tarnish the image of the middle school.
You know, Tony, just to, like, and I agree with everything you said, right? And especially in relation to the fights and everything else. I'm talking about just, I really don't want to focus on, you know, the 30, 40 seconds of video that we saw, right? To me, it's not just those behaviors, it's culture, and I know we do a lot to try to change culture, and I'm not saying we're doing the wrong things or bad things. I'm not 100% sure what we're doing in the elementary schools, but the concerning thing I have as a parent, community member, is just listen to the way these kids talk today. You know, I don't want to go math class, I'd rather kill myself. Like, people say things like that because it's, you know, like there's things there, and I have 2 middle school kids, and I'm telling you, I can fight the tide of social media as hard as I can. Parents need help, it's hard. So I just wanna make sure, preface that my comments aren't just about the extreme that we see. Because you're right, kids are gonna fight, they don't care for consequences and things anymore. But there's so much happening on the peripheral of those events that I think really is a problem that is just going to fester and get worse. Whether it's videotaping, whether it's egging kids on, whether it's the social media activity after an event is really the bigger trouble. The texting and what's happening, things like that. So I didn't mean to go off on too far of a tangent, talk too long, but I just want to have those conversations a little bit more, because I don't remember the last time we ever had a conversation about, and we see what's happening and all that, but what are the interventions, what are they, and can we just dive into a little bit more? If the board doesn't think it's worthy, you know, I get it, but maybe sometime down the line in the summer, we can discuss it a little bit and talk about some ideas from other places. One last tiny little piece, I promise, I know I went a long way. I don't like to talk about too much. One of my colleagues on Nassau Suffolk School Board, I really want to bring her up because at the meeting last week, she had this real impassioned plea about her and why she has what inspired her to become a board member. And I won't tell you the whole story, but her name is Jeanette Santos, and she was a member of the Amityville School Board. She did not win re-election yesterday. Jeanette's 85 years old, and she served 44 years on her school board. She signed up for another 3 to get to 47 because she wanted to hand her diploma to her grandchildren. She's also a member of the Western Suffolk BOCES Board, so I'll still see her, and she's an ex officio president of the Nassau Suffolk School Board Association. And it's very inspiring to be around somebody like that when you listen to her talk. And for all I know, she was a horrible board member. I really don't know. But when you talk about why they're there, and that's when I look at people, I look at my colleagues, and other board members, I always wonder why they're there and, you know, what really is their driving force. And when you see advocates like that, man, there's some really amazing people that chose board service throughout our communities through Long Island, and I'm really privileged to get to know her and many others like her. So that's it. I'll shut up now. Thank you.
Vice President Hayes.
Okay, not to duplicate what was said about some of these events, but I wanted to give my own perspective about a couple of them. One had to do with Mr. Puccini's comment about the low turnout for voting yesterday and commitment to doing work for the community. And that's one of the reasons I was so impressed by going to the salute to the enlistees last week, to see that these young people are joining our uniformed services in order to give back to the country. But another way that I think things are happening is through our civics education, and the civics days are coming up in the next couple of weeks. And our students have been actively participating in the civics programs over the last few years. I think it's fair to say it's a vibrant program here at South Country. And our students are given the opportunity to see how working for the benefit of the community can be achieved, how they can participate in that. With regard to your, Mr. Puccini's comment, kind of was on social media, but that ties into the Ryan Story Assembly, the father who spoke about his son who took his own life. And when you hear the whole story, it was largely impacted by what was done to him on social media. And the students at the middle school paid attention. I don't think I've ever heard that group of students sit for so long and so quietly and paying attention to what this father had to say. So I think on some level, the point about social media and not using it in a healthy way comes through things like this assembly, and I would like to think that it does have impact on our students. The other meeting that I went to was the Equity Committee meeting, and it came out, let me backtrack about social media. Because every meeting that I've been going to, both board advisory committees and also the network of community resources, it's unanimous of everybody that social media is adversely contributing to a lot of behavioral issues and mental health issues. But let me talk about the Equity Committee just briefly. And one thing that came through our last meeting was student interviews. And again, almost unanimously, the students were asking for more challenging studies into some very important areas. They wanted to dig deeper into things. They don't want to just have superficial approaches. And I know that our assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction is hearing that and getting it all tied in for both curriculum and guidance and all aspects of student life. And I was very appreciative of hearing that. So, and then just to summarize, I'm also very happy about the budget vote and the other proposition vote, and appreciative of our community that comes out to show support for public education and in our district in particular. That's it.
Thank you very much. Okay, Ms. Johnson?
Thank you. The election is taking place right now for student council and class officers that will hold office next year. We have a lot of involvement and the spots are filled up. As Mr. Santana was saying before, it is important to be involved, and I see that growing as we come back from COVID. It was a little slow at first, and that's starting to grow now. It's very exciting to see everyone wanting to hold a position and be involved with our school. And the events that we put on, I think, really help to bring people to that as well. On May 31st, we will have our annual volleyball tournament. Students made teams and will compete with each other, and the underclassmen volleyball team will be the refs and run the event alongside with the coaches. On June 1st, we will go whitewater rafting. It's a great team building exercise, and we went on this trip last year and it was a lot of fun, so we're excited to go back. We have many senior awards nights coming up, as well as the senior field day, which is on June 5th at 2 o'clock. This event is where the whole class comes together one last time before graduation. The underclassmen and TOF always do an amazing job making this event a fun one to send the seniors out.
Okay. And the election next year won't involve you.
For the first time. Yeah, in 4 years.
All right, well, thank you very much. All right, with respect to the election, the superintendent and myself had a conversation about this. I had gotten a call over the weekend that people from the Brookhaven Hamlet had told me that they did not receive the district mailing about the election. And so I alerted the superintendent to get in touch with the postmaster to find out what happened. Turned out that Bellport zip code also did not get that mailing as well. So problems that happen when you send out bulk mail, it's third-class mail. It's at the pleasure of the postmaster when they send that out. There's a deadline where it has to go out by, and it could be up to that very last deadline, which was Monday. And so with a $140 million budget, we really have to make a decision. Do we send it out first-class mail, or do we wait for bulk rate mail? And I think that had a lot to do with the voter turnout. And I don't think we should trust bulk rate mail next year, and we should take those steps to increase the cost to make sure we get that out. So that was a big problem. Also, I think we should look at the difference with our neighboring district, Patrick Medford. They had a bond vote last year that failed. They had a bond vote this year that passed overwhelmingly because they put together a team that advocated for it, and they really did a remarkable job in selling that, and got a wonderful approval rating. And people that bought in, they created new stakeholders into what they had to sell and what they had to do for their district, and it worked magnificently. So we should look at what they did for what we have to do moving forward. Also, the Nassau Suffolk School Board Association has their annual meeting on May 30th. Right now, there's no one slated from our district to go there. Are you able to go to that meeting,
I'm not
Chris?
going, no.
You're not gonna go?
Nope.
All right, so no one from our district is gonna go, but you're slated to be reappointed that meeting.
Yeah,
So we're not gonna be voting on it, though, so we're not gonna place a vote. Is anybody available to go to that meeting?
I'm really not, I mean, I'm sure I'm gonna get reelected.
Well, it would be nice if someone from our district, I can't go either. It would just be nice if someone from our district could go. So if you can just look at your calendar and see if anybody could go, I wanted to just put that out there. Especially because Chris is due to be
Next week, it's a week from
reappointed.
tomorrow.
What's that?
It's a week from tomorrow. There's an outside chance that I will go last minute, but I don't think so.
Okay, all right, so just put that in there.
It's actually in Suffolk County this year, which is why I wanted to go, because it's usually in
It's
Westbury.
always in.
That's why I don't go. Most of the dinners are Fox Hill, Fox Hollow, whatever it is, all the way out in Westbury, and it's just a hassle. It's in Comac this year at the Hamlet. So we were talking about at the last meeting, I'm gonna try to rearrange something and see if I can go, but I don't think it's gonna
Okay, all right, so just to put that out there. Also, I just want to say that I'm a little preoccupied this meeting, because there's something going on in my family right now that I want to share. I wanted to share it when there were more kids here. But everybody should just realize that, life is precious, and don't take any moment for granted. Don't text and drive, and always wear your seatbelt. Are you okay?
Just read off the screen.
Oh, okay. My stepson is gonna go into surgery tomorrow. He made a bad mistake. And he was ejected from his car Sunday night. And he's gonna undergo spinal surgery tomorrow, to hopefully prevent paralysis by making one split-second bad decision. He's 37 years old. And all I think about is our adult children, you know, our kids, that we try to educate. And he's a good boy. And all our kids are good boys. You know, they're good kids. He's got a good job. He takes care of his employees. And he just made one stupid mistake. There was no alcohol involved. There was no speeding involved. He just made a dumb mistake. So tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, you know, think about him and think about your kids and remind your kids and remind yourself. Put your seatbelt on. Put your seatbelt on and don't reach down to even change the radio station. Because distracted driving, that's what it causes. And we're gonna hope for the best. And while everyone was talking here, while you were talking about Ryan's story, I was thinking about Alex. And I was like, I hope I can bring him to school one day and that he can share his story on how he's gonna beat this and he's gonna survive. So, I just had to share that tonight. Because he's got a long road ahead of him. So we've been going through this since Sunday night. He was airlifted to Stony Brook. And we're very lucky that we have Stony Brook University on this island, let me tell you. Because he's getting the best of care. And I just had to say that. Because I want you to all share that with all your kids. Put that seatbelt on and put that damn phone down. Okay? Thank you for letting me share. I think that concludes our reports. And we'll move on.
So we'll certainly keep Alex's thoughts and prayers, and I'll be thinking about you and your family.
Thank you.
So, let's talk about the VOE meeting schedule.
All right, so we are on to, no, we have public commentary first. Yeah, item E, public commentary. Do we have a card?
Is it on the agenda?
I'm not quite sure if this is agenda or not. Just make a comment about the budget. Oh,
We'll take it. Sure.
oh. Yeah, that's what it came down to.
Yeah, we just gotta set the timer.
It's on.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
There we go, never mind.
I didn't know, okay. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Lisa DeSanto, former board member, resident of the district for almost 34 years now. I have to say, I also was dismayed about the lack of turnout, and I was actually dismayed about, gee, I know it's the third Tuesday of the month and hadn't heard a thing really in reference to what was going on in the school district. And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's not bad, but as a former participation in government teacher, lack of participation is bad. We ought to maybe go back to some of the things we've done in the past on the board, as we don't need to reinvent the wheel, but anytime we had any proposition, some of the previous either committees that had put forth some of those issues, or the superintendent, or a combination of those individuals actually did a roadshow. And they went to local civic meetings, or they went to local churches, or any events where there was going to be a mass of people who don't come here, but basically take it out to the community and educate them as to the wonderful things you plan to do. Because when something like the project with the auditorium, which is long overdue, that auditorium is used not only by our district, but we often offer that out to outside groups, and it's ought to be a beautiful showcase for our community as to what we're able to do, because I bet any district on Long Island that the shows we put on are on par, if not superior, to anything that anybody else puts on. And I go to a lot of different places and talk to a lot of different people. So when we have that opportunity to showcase that, I really wish we'd be our own best advertisements. I always tell you, and I sat in that seat over there, squeaky wheel gets the grease. And that's probably one of the reasons why I feel, in reference to my previous comments from the last meeting, we are that hidden gem amongst the large districts, and we need to toot our own horn on some of the fabulous things that we have going on here. And my prayers to your family. I was the former, back then it was the Students Against Drunk Driving advisor for about 15 years over at William Floyd. And this is the time of year where we really have to remind people, the weather's good, we hop in our car, and we want to get to all the different places we're going, but particularly with young people. Please, if you don't already have some campaign at the high school, this is the time to have it. Because they're running off to all these wonderful things, and everybody's planning for the future, and that 10 seconds in the minute when that bell rings, that's where tragedy can happen. So if that's not an issue, if there's not publicity going on in the middle school and the high school level around, it's great weather, but we are entered, as of this weekend, the 100 days of summer, which is also the days in which the most accidents happen on Long Island. So please be aware, and hopefully, if there's not already a campaign, that needs to be the next thing to focus on. And again, prayers for tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Certainly.
Okay, I got permission from
Oh, please,
President
yes.
Police to speak. We're not supposed to engage
You don't need
with our,
permission.
No, but I know what you're gonna say, and it should be said.
and I was gonna ask the superintendent to just comment about all the community organizations that he addressed with regard to our budget and the propositions. And I think it was referred to as road shows. And I just think you should comment about what all you did
So
do.
we did roadshows for the PTA council. Some of the civics organizations said they weren't interested in the roadshow, they were aware of the budget, so we made that in. But I did speak to the Beach Association. And in terms of promoting the district, we go to great lengths to promote it on social media. I mean, it's we have about, myself, and I only do social media for work, but 1,500 people follow me. So it's we do a considerable amount of marketing, and certainly we marketed the budget. But yeah, I agree with Trustee Pacini because traditionally speaking, people who want to vote no on a budget are going to come out, and those I think when people are sort of have that mindset, there's no stopping it, and it's when things are. One of the side effects when people are sort of content, is that that kind of breeds, sort of complacency. And so, certainly, we're sort of limited in how we can tell people to come out and vote, but, I'd love to see more participation.
One of the things just to answer too, because, I remember I started the road shows with Dr. Gianni. I remember sitting in Bellport Methodist, it was just me, you, Dr. Gianni, and like one parent showed up. But, I don't know if I've ever seen anything like it. 12 years being on the board, there was no interest. I even you call people and texted people, I can't wait to get the list of voters, because I got calls to make of people I know didn't show up. I don't get it. And I think we've done the same thing we've been doing for many, many years, and maybe there is something different to be done. I was invited Saturday to the COPEG's budget presentation. They do a really great, I've been talking about it for years, although it's changed much, and I couldn't make it, but yeah, there's just something, there was something else I was gonna say too, that you just said that reminded me, and I forgot what it was, but anyway, I'm sorry, I know what it was. I don't know that we ever, I think we did this early on when I was on the board, and nobody really, but, we should reach out to the little leagues, the teams, and just ask them not to have practice that night. I mean, let's face it, the fields, I mean, you go to middle school minutes, there's plenty of parents out on the field. You go to Crits, it's baseball season, they're on the field. They're out, right? But they just, and listen, I get it. I got 2 middle school kids. I'm out every night. I'm driving somebody somewhere and it's busy and it is crazy.
What do you mean, the night of the budget hearing?
Yeah, I mean, we used to do, I don't remember if I think we did one year, like, hey, and it's tough, right? Because you have so many, it's hard to get a nice day this time of year, right? So it's to capitalize on field space for kids, I get it, it's hard, but, man, I don't know what it is, everybody's out.
Maybe
There's-
we should go out on the field before they start.
I did that. I did that last night. I was out there at the Little League.
But it's-
I don't
I mean,
have any kids anymore, but making sure parents know what was going on and
Okay.
trying to educate them and encourage them to come out and vote.
I mean, the people, the community's on our property, right?
That's what I did.
The people are on our property.
Yeah.
They're here for something. So whatever we do to maximize the exposure or just, but whatever we can do, and I know we're not supposed to do, I mean, there used to be is the concert still at Kramer that night?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we're not really supposed to really do that, that's what we do at Kramer, but anyway. Okay.
All right.
Maybe we could have a take your parent to vote day.
All
All the
right.
kids will bring their parents.
Duly noted.
Just give out ice cream. That brings them
All
out.
right, that brings us to items for discussion and item F. Now we're on to the board meeting schedule.
So item F is the board meeting schedule for the 24-25 school year.
Yeah, just a note, there's a typo as you go into next year. We go to 2025 and then back to 2024.
Oh, yes, okay. Does March, in March, does it line up to the correct dates?
Let's see.
I see that.
I did not check.
Oh, yeah.
March 20, let's see, March 5th, yeah, that's a Wednesday.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're still on the right, they're on the right dates, it's just a typo in the
okay.
email.
All right, so you'll say that? Okay.
So can we vote on this, subject to correction of the typo?
Mhm. Yep.
All right, so you need to
So-
make that recommendation.
The administration recommends the approval of the Board of Education meeting schedule that sets forward in the schedule, provided that the dates starting March 5th on are corrected to reflect 2025.
Right, okay. Motion and second? Motion by trustee Flippin, second by trustee, we'll give that one to trustee Hayes. Okay? All right, any discussion? The discussion was?
Yeah, that was the discussion.
Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Seeing all hands raised, motion passes unanimously. All right. Item F2 is the first reading of policy 6212. So you'll see that again on June 5th. And now we're up to item G, consent agenda for curriculum.
Thank you. The administration recommends approval of curriculum items reflected in schedules G1 through G2.
Okay, need a motion and a second for G1 to G2. Trustee Barry and trustee Kavanaugh. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Seeing all hands raised, motion passes unanimously. And now that brings us to item H, consent agenda for personnel.
The administration recommends approval of personnel items reflected in schedules H1 through H7.
H1 through H7, no.
I'm sorry, H8.
No,
Nine.
9.
Oh, I'm sorry. Typo on mine here. I'm gonna repeat that. The administration recommends approval of personnel changes reflected in schedules H1 through H9.
And Madam Clerk, that's exactly the way I need it to read, okay? Perfect, thank you. Okay, need a motion and a second for H1 through 9. Motion and a second, where are we? Trustee Kavanaugh, second by trustee Barry. Any discussion? No discussion, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Seeing all hands raised, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. You want to make any announcements?
Sure, before we go on to next, I just want to acknowledge Mr. Marcelo Galina in the audience. He's just been approved to be our security supervisor. I'm really excited for him to jump on board and join our team and really be proactive in keeping our community and our school district safe. So thank you, Mr. Galina.
All right. And now that brings us to board consent agenda items for business in item I.
So item I-1 requires a roll call vote.
Oh, yes. This is for the tax anticipation notes resolution. Madam Clerk?
Yes. So the tax anticipation note resolution of the South Country Central School District is noted in the public session on board docs. And the adoption of this resolution, I just need a first.
Okay, let me just explain that a little bit for those that are here. This is a tax anticipation note. What this means is we have to borrow money in anticipation of getting paid back by the town, and then we pay back the note. So it does require a roll call vote. And,
It's important to note it happens every year.
yes, thank you, Trustee Hachini.
And it's short-term borrowing.
Right. So, we need
I
a
do
motion
need-
and a second, yes.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by trustee Barry, seconded by, anybody? Trustee Flippin, and you have a motion and a second, and would you please call the roll?
Trustee Barry,
Yes.
trustee Flippin,
Yes.
trustee Kavanaugh,
Yes.
trustee Pacini,
Yes.
trustee Trent is absent for vote, vice president Hayes,
Yes.
president Felice.
Yes.
So it is unanimous for the tax anticipation note. Thank you.
And the motion passes unanimously.
Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on, the administration recommends approval of business items reflected in schedules I-2 through I-27.
And we need a motion for I-2 through did you say 27?
27.
Through 27, okay. Motion by trustee Barry, seconded by trustee Kavanaugh. And all those, any discussion? No discussion, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Seeing all hands raised, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And that brings us to our final commentary for any item. Any more cards? Seeing no cards, that brings us to closing remarks. Any closing remarks?
I just wanted to chime on the thing that was mentioned. I mean, I did talk to a lot of people about the budget and the elections coming up. You know, while it is sad, it seems to be hammered home, the number of people who did come out and vote. You know, just talking with people, a lot of satisfaction in some of the work. And I think oftentimes people are quick to raise issues and very loudly on things that they're concerned about. But I also want to point out that it is something where I think a lot of people are very happy with a lot of the work, and sometimes that may come across with apathy. And then the, well, no, that's it.
No, I agree with you, trustee Barry, and as much as, you know, you would like to see nice numbers, the percentage number is certainly for your, you know, full year as the superintendent. You put this whole budget together. It was a very nice percentage for you. And certainly I can't see Jen out there, but the two of you worked very well together in this presentation. It was very succinct, it was very clear, and you did a wonderful job. And a 71.5% win approval rating, I think, was very nice, and it did show that the community is happy, because if they were not, those numbers would have been much different. So we will continue to improve as we move along, but I'm very pleased, and the board should be pleased, because we ultimately put that budget out there. So I think we should be very proud of this budget.
Thank you, President Felice. And one person I'll never be satisfied is Tony Santana. You know, like I said, I have high aspirations for the school district, and I don't think the goals I set will ever be met, but that's the way you operate, you know. one of my colleagues, Dr. Ken Foster, and I'll give him credit, one of his taglines is, you know, the road to excellence has no finish line. And I do embrace that and embody that, so we'll continue plugging away and continually, you know, promote student achievement and growth in our district, because we are a gem, to your point.
Well, and, you know, and it is a team effort, you know, we have many stakeholders in, you know, in our team, you know, with all of our bargaining units and our support staff and teachers, and so it's a team effort, so I think it was a team win,
Absolutely.
absolutely. All right?
I do want to give a shout out to, do you have another meeting, Ms. Johnson?
Yes,
Was
One
that-
more, June 5th, you're with us, right?
Yeah, one more.
That's
Don't
why I
skip
put
it.
on my comments.
please be there.
Yeah, we just have the senior barbecue after school and the awards in the morning, so I don't have anything else.
Okay, good. All right, great. All right, so if there's no other closing remarks, we'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion by trustee Barry, seconded by trustee Cavanaugh. All those in favor? Raise your hands. We stand adjourned.